Hello and welcome to another episode of Your True North video podcast, a space filled with authentic talks about personal stories, a space where you can connect, explore, and let yourself be in awe of the human spirit. My guest today is a special person. He is a half Swiss, half Greek language teacher turned actor. These days, he uses his acting training to help people speak to audiences with competence and confidence, both in person and virtually. Charisma might be a Greek word, but he is on a mission to debunk the idea that it needs to be a gift. So, without any further ado, Kalimera Nick Diakanastasis.
Kalimera. That was good. That was
yeah.
Diakanastasis is correct. Parakalo. Oh, someone's done their homework.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. I think this is the first time I've been greeted in Greek at a podcast. So yes.
I can also say actually Guten Morgen. I think you also you also speak.
Wow. We're speaking all my native tongues now. Guten Morgen. Yeah. Nice. Thank you for having me.
So, ladies and gentlemen that are watching and listening to this episode, in today's talk, we will touch upon the subject of fears because, as we all know, public speaking is associated with the fear of speaking in front of an audience. So why not extend the topic of discussion to other fears as well? But first of all, Nick, how are your Sirtaki skills?
They're okay. I would say they're intermediate. I haven't practiced in a while.
Okay. So you can teach charisma. Please walk us through a bit through your teaching, acting journey.
Ooh, do you want the long version or the short version? It is quite a journey. So, as you said in your intro, I used to be a language teacher who then became an actor, who then now is a public speaking coach. So each of these stages, I feel, fed into each other, because I would have had a hard time as a non-native speaker dealing with things like Shakespeare, for example, if I hadn't first studied English language and literature. And then I would probably have made for quite a lousy public speaking coach if I hadn't mastered these skills myself first on the acting front. So it's interesting that you put it as me teaching charisma, because it's not necessarily how I market it. Although I do talk about charisma. What I would say is I teach a certain set of skills. It sounded a bit creepy. I teach a set of tools that people can use to connect with their audience and do it well and do it in the most efficient way possible. So face-to-face or digital face-to-face. And as someone who's actually been through that transition himself, because I used to have no people skills, I could barely talk to a person, let alone an audience, before drama school. I know how these things work because I've been through that ringer myself, and I have seen how these things can be learned. So fun fact about the word charisma, it is Greek, and literally it means gift, because it was believed that it's a gift from the gods. So you either are a born speaker or you're not. And even though, isn't it funny how most people wouldn't know the etymology of the word charisma, but they still see it this way. They still think that talking to people or to an audience and doing it well, that it's just something you have or you don't. And you're doomed if you don't have it. That's it. And that is so not the case. These are things that you can actually learn. So my training is influenced a lot by the acting training that I went through at drama school. So it's all about how to tell a story. It's about what do you do with your face, with your body language? How do you control your voice? How do you practice active listening and pay attention to your audience so that you know how to respond? So you have this ebb and flow of communication. How do you use 5 words instead of 25 so you don't bore the audience out of their minds? It's all that very tangible, actionable stuff. That's, I would say, a synopsis of it.
Yeah, I know. I know that you say that you don't work on the mindset. You just
Yeah,
work on the skills that
yeah.
actually a person can pick up, can learn,
Mm.
practice, and apply directly in their life.
Yeah, I remember one of the first days in the first term of drama school, they made a bit fun of that concept that everything is mindset and everything is inner. So they said, just to warn you, there will not be a module where we all sit around and talk about like our limiting beliefs and our fears and all. There won't be anything like that. We're not going to sit around and think, okay, today we're going to be really sad because when we were 5, our parents told us not to speak. Children should be seen, not heard. Like there is none of that. There was no module or any extensive training on that inner stuff. It's the philosophy, I guess, of that, the Stanislavski method, is you work from the outside in, basically. So you take actions. These actions then, they can change how you feel about yourself and in general on the inside. That's one. The other caveat is that how you feel, sadly, it doesn't matter to the audience all that much because we are selfish humans. So when we are watching your performance, your TED talk, your social media video, your webinar, whatever it is, unfortunately, with a few exceptions, we are there for ourselves. We are not there for you. We are there because we want to learn or to be entertained, or even both, if you can do that. But we're not really there to watch you feel confident about yourself. Like for most of us, that's not enough of a reward to give you our time and our energy. So it's very, very action driven, and I would say vocational. It's not really inner work.
But still, the audience can pick up on certain things if the speaker is not, let's say, trained well enough to
Yeah.
hide certain aspects, certain things that
Mm,
may be bothering them in that
mm,
moment. I mean, it's the same way as actually acting in a theater play, let's say, and you have
yeah.
the audience in front of you, and that actor needs to actually put up a barrier between what happens in their life in that present moment and the thing that they are actually delivering to the public. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
the
There is. You have
message the message needs to come across as clear as possible. So
it
yes,
needs.
yeah.
It needs. You don't
Mm.
want to confuse your audience. They don't like that. They want the message to be clear, hopefully.
So yes, you can this way to come back to what you said, that you can actually learn
Mm,
skills in this respect. So probably you can learn how to control your voice, how to
mm,
control your outer experience, your body language, the way you
mm,
present, you carry yourself in front of the audience, probably,
mm.
as well
Yeah.
as other other ways of actually delivering verbally the message.
Yeah. Verbally and non-verbally. I mean,
Mhm.
you've probably seen those studies that they say something like 80 or 85 or 90 or 95, some super high percentage of communication is non-verbal.
Mhm.
I don't know if you can actually put a percentage of that. I do think some of these studies are quite biased because if you look at it, they will create really unnatural situations that wouldn't happen in any kind of performing, not public speaking, not singing or acting, anything like that. So, for example, they would have a person try to communicate with someone who has no languages in common with them and try to convey it just from their expressions. That's not fair because that's not going to happen in real life. If you actually do a TED talk or a social media video, you're probably not going to sit there and go, you are actually going to use some verbal language. But I do think we can all agree, and we know this to be true on an instinctive level, that the nonverbal part is huge because you can say the exact same words, but depending on how you say them, they can be believable or not, or they can communicate something completely different. There can be a clash, right? There's a huge difference between, wow, thank you, and wow, thank you. I don't sound very grateful in the second one, and that was on purpose because what you don't say is often quite loud as well. So it's about not creating, controlling the overall expressions. When we talk about expressions, as you said, it's the whole package. It's what your face is doing, your body, your voice, what you're doing on stage. So how you're using the space. So if we were on a stage right now, it does create a different experience if you get closer to the audience, or if you're super far back on the stage and you basically have to yell and hope that they can see and hear you. So all of these things, however, they are choices that you can make, and you can learn how to control these things. You're not doomed unless somebody actually pushes you back into the far back of the stage and say, no, you cannot get closer to the audience. So a lot of the time people have more choices than they actually think they do in this whole communication game.
But I think also let's say the situation changes a bit,
Mm,
especially right now, since last year when we started having these Zoom
yeah.
conversations and everything is online. So basically, you need to teach different things, different cues for them, because speaking in front of a camera is a bit different than speaking on a stage in front of actual live people. So probably the
Mm,
I don't know, the non-verbal communication needs to be a bit different than if you were
the,
on a physical stage.
yeah. It's such a double-edged sword because there's a lot less of you that the audience can see on camera, and that can be good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be good because there are fewer things that you need to keep an eye on, and there are fewer things that can, I guess, ruin the communication, but there are also fewer things that you can do to win the audience over. So whatever little they can perceive now, that really needs to work. So the nonverbal communication in a lot of ways needs to be even better because they see so little, they see a head and shoulders most of the time. So you really can't afford to, for example, a very basic thing that so many people still don't do is they don't actually look into the camera. So they're talking to you, but they're like this. So if you're talking to your audience, well, I don't feel like you're looking at me if you do this. This, if you actually look directly into the lens, this is going to create a better connection. So everything is magnified when you're this close, everything you do. So every little gesture that can really, I'm not going to say make or break the communication, but it makes a bigger impact than if you were actually on a stage because you have more wiggle room. There are more things that you can do to pull it back and to save the communication. Whereas here, if I did an entire video doing this, yeah, there's no way to say that. I think the audience is not going to like it.
Yeah, that's true. You need to pull them. I mean, it's probably easier on a stage to pull them back into your narrative, into your speech,
Yeah,
your the what you're trying to communicate
yeah,
to them. So coming back to your journey, tell us a
yes.
bit how you switched from teaching, why teaching in the first place, and
Mm,
then back to going to acting.
mm. Why teaching languages? Fear, the topic of today's
Okay.
conversation. So when I was finishing high school, I honestly had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't have any kind of big plan, and that freaked me out a bit because there were people who were excited to go be doctors, lawyers, teachers, something or other. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And there was this prevalent mentality that I think these days is even more prevalent that you just have to study something, anything at all, because otherwise you will be homeless and broke and drunk. You will have no hope in the world, right? Unless you get a degree. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be underwater basket weaving, but you have to study something. That was a mentality back then. So I was pushed from all directions, parents, teachers, mentors. I was pushed to go study something, anything. And I made the very practical and very passionless choice of studying English language and literature because I thought, well, I'm a native bilingual. I've always been good at languages. I mean, at the time of graduating high school, I already spoke, four, because I also spoke Latin because that
Wow.
was an elective subject. I've forgotten most of it at this point. It's a very hard language, so if you don't practice, you will lose it very quickly. So I thought that is the path of least resistance, honestly, because I know that I will do well, and I did without putting in much effort, and I can, I guess, win some time while I'm studying this to figure out what I want to do with my life. So when I was doing the English degree, I was very underwhelmed. As I kept getting closer, as the years went on, I thought, um, what happens after I finish with this, I mean, I don't want to be a language teacher. I don't want to be a translator either, which were pretty much the only two paths that they assumed that you would take with this course of studying. You would either be a teacher or a translator.
Hmm.
Joke's on me because I became both of these for a long time, but that's later. But I thought, I don't really want to do this. I don't see myself applying these skills at any point. My English was good before I even entered that, so it's not even as if I studied it just to improve my English. So I thought, what do I want to do? And then there was this random stroke of genius and or madness that I had, so at 21, where I spontaneously applied for an Intro to Acting summer course at the drama school, East 15. I had no idea what East 15 was. I didn't know it was one of the top drama schools in the UK. I didn't have any other ones in mind. I think it was just the first Google result that showed up when I said Intro to Acting summer course or something like that. It was just one of those mad moments where I was guided almost by, I don't know, intuition. And I applied for this course. I was accepted because it's an intro course, so they'll probably accept anyone as long as there are places open. And the only logic, if I can call that, behind that was I've always been artsy-fartsy. I've always been good at painting, singing, drawing, doing things with Play-Doh, anything creative I was good at. So I just had this random idea of why not try this? Statistically, I might be good at it just because it's another one of those artsy things. That was it. I didn't think any further than that. And then when I came here and I did that 3-week course in the summer, so that's what, 2010, I think, at this point, it was like a revelation. So within a couple of days, it was like, I thought, I can't believe I haven't been doing this for my whole life, because that felt so natural and so good. I thought, oh, wow, there's a different life than I had back in Greece, because I still lived in Greece back then. I almost can't believe I had a whole different life for the past 21 years. I can't believe that I didn't wake up every day and do, 3 hours of dancing and 3 hours of singing and 3 hours of stage combat and 3 hours of Chekhov or whatever. It felt so natural, and I took to it so quickly that I thought, this is it. I found my calling in life now. This is what I'm meant to do. And then I auditioned to get in properly on the course next year, and I did. Against all odds. And I actually felt quite intimidated because I thought I'm up against people who have been doing this for a long time, potentially. They might have been acting since they were 5 or 10 or something, and I'm 22 at this point, and I haven't really acted properly before. But I thought I will give it a shot, because if I don't, I'll regret it. And it turns out it worked out, and I got in somehow. So that's how I transitioned from unhappy English teacher to happy for a while. As we go on, you'll see it wasn't for always. For a while, happy actor.
So basically, you started from, I don't know, feeling peer pressure.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's the fear of not amounting to anything that came from the peer pressure, or the fear of not disappointing the closest people, your family, your teachers. Which one was it?
The first one, for sure. I'm not a people pleaser, so fear of disappointing people is not really a big fear for me. It never has been. It was a fear of these people pressuring me to study something, anything. Well, they're a lot older and they've lived a lot more life, so I guess maybe they know better. So what will be the fallout if I don't follow their advice? Maybe they know what's coming ahead and I don't, because I'm still young. So I just assumed that they knew better, and that I have to do this now, because otherwise I will end up broke and homeless and struggling in life.
But would you, if you're looking back now on that decision that you made, would you say that it was a mistake, or how do you feel about this right now?
Right now, I can say it made sense. I don't. It wasn't a mistake. If I undid it, if I traveled back in time and I undid it, I possibly wouldn't have ended up here. So I wouldn't undo it if I could. It wasn't a mistake in that sense because it led here. But if you'd asked me a few years ago, I would probably have told you, yes, it was a mistake, right? Because when people say this platitude of, oh, don't regret any mistakes in the past, or don't consider them mistakes, consider them lessons because they brought you here. It really depends on how you feel about here, though, right? If here was a place where I don't want to be, then I would be pretty angry that I made a mistake. If here is where I feel is the right place, then I think, okay, I guess it was not meant to happen because I don't believe in fate, but I guess it was actually the right decision. But you can only see that sometimes after it happens, not as it's happening. It wasn't a mistake as far as I'm concerned. But I can tell you this now. If you asked at a different time, 5 or 10 years ago, I might have said, yeah.
Yes, but it depends, of course, yeah, as you said, on where you are at the moment
Yeah.
that you're probably asking yourself the question.
Yeah.
And of course, you are not a tree, you can move. So if you're
Exactly.
not
I love that
comfortable with,
saying. Yeah.
yeah, if you're not comfortable with the situation that you're in, with the
Mm.
circumstances that you're in, you can make other choices. You
Yeah.
can always go back to. Okay, so you basically left something you knew and that was comfortable for you at the beginning, but was okay, let's say a choice that
Unhappy.
yeah, unhappy,
Yeah.
but a forced, let's say
Mm.
forced choice at the moment
Mm.
for something you needed, you probably needed, you actually needed acting.
Yeah.
So how did you transition from acting to public speaking, and why?
Mm.
Why did this transition make sense to you?
Yeah. So that was, there were quite tumultuous few years, sort of the early 20 teens until about 2015, 2016. So when I started my actual training, the full-on training at the drama school, I went through an incredible roller coaster of emotions and revelations about me, about life in general. And I went from at the beginning feeling like, yes, this is the first day of the rest of my life. This is what I'm meant to be doing, to halfway through that year, thinking, I don't know if I actually want to do this. Maybe I jumped the gun too fast because I was so desperate to reinvent myself and to get away from a life that A, I didn't like, B, as you said, was basically chosen for me and I felt like I had no control. So that I maybe didn't think this through completely because obviously there the training is professional, as in they're preparing you for the industry. So it's two things. Obviously, they go hand in hand. Yes, they want you to teach you to be the best actor you can be, but they also want to teach you how to be a working actor who can survive in a very, very difficult industry. So
A very competitive industry.
yeah, yeah, it's super competitive. And the more I learned about the industry part, not just the acting part, the more I realized, I don't know if I want to do this. This is when I realized things like the odds are abysmal. And this is us, like a class of 44 people, I remember that, my year, who are all good actors, who are all being trained by people who are leaders in their fields. And yet even our odds are so bad, let alone anybody else, let alone every single graduate that comes out from drama schools every year, let
Mm.
alone people who don't even go to drama school, because you don't necessarily have to. I think it's a good idea, but not everyone is trained. Although that's more of an American thing. Usually in the UK, most actors are probably going to be trained. So if you notice how bad the odds are, and the things that are considered a given, like that you will just work basically for free to build your CV, that you will have to juggle all kinds of other jobs that you will hate, like waiting tables, working in a call center, all that stuff. And it's seen as a given. You're seen as too ambitious or too arrogant if you say, well, I provide a service, I expect to be paid. That this is seen as too ambitious. Like, Nick, you're arrogant. You can't say that. It's like, what? What's the damn point then of doing this? So as I had these realizations about what my future would look like, and then when I graduated drama school, at that point, I think I'd mentally mostly given up on the whole acting thing. I thought, I don't think. I appreciate the skills because, as I said at the beginning of this episode, I went from having the charisma and the people skills of a potato to actually being good with people. I thought this is super valuable. I'm sure that I will find some way to apply this in some job. I just don't know if it's going to be acting. There don't seem to be that many people willing in the acting in the showbiz world to pay for my skills. Maybe I have to look somewhere else for people who are willing to actually pay me for the service I provide. So I still acted for a couple of years after graduation, but it pretty much was what I'd already seen coming ahead from the people who graduated before us, from older actors who had visited us to give workshops and seminars and whatnot. I thought, ooh, it's bleak. Like these people are like 30, 40, and they still have to have like 171 housemates because they can't afford to rent their own place. Own property, definitely not. They still have to sometimes pick up other work that is not acting, as I said, waiting tables, whatever. Generally jobs that most people don't have fun doing, because there's a difference between hard work that you enjoy and hard work that you don't. Being on the phone all day while people yell at you for things that you cannot control, that's not fun. Like customer service. And I would see the future kind of on the horizon. I'll think, oh, no, 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 no. I don't think I want to do this to myself. And at that point, bear in mind, I was juggling probably, I'd say, a triangle of different activities. So I was still auditioning, rehearsing, performing when I would get something. I was also still teaching languages on the side as a freelancer. And I would also have to take temp work like customer service, recruitment, market research, canvassing. It's awful. It's when you go door to door and you try to sell people stuff that they don't want and they threaten to beat you up for disturbing them. It's not fun. So I thought, well, I'm trying to juggle 3 things right now, and I'm not doing any of them all that well because I think 3 is too many. I need to focus on one thing. So I decided to focus back on the thing that I knew best and that I knew at least I can make comparatively better money from, which is teaching languages and then translation as well, because I've been doing that ever since I was a student back in Greece. That's when that started. So I thought I will focus on that for now, and I will try to stabilize at least one friggin' side of this triangle before I try to juggle all 3. And then the idea, or at least what I would tell myself, was once I become better established here as a language teacher and a translator, and I have at least some stability in my income and in my career, if I can call it that, then I will start looking into acting again. But until then, I don't want to do 3 things at the same time and fail at all 3. And then as I started building a happy customer base and becoming comparatively more successful, making better money, my actor friends or former classmates would ask, so when are you getting back into acting? And I would think, when? That's an interesting question. I think it's if, not when I get back into it. They'd say, because there's this audition or, have you thought of signing with another agent? And I would say, no, I don't think I want to. So at that point, I started having the revelation that I don't think I want to get back into the whole performing thing for many reasons. One, I like having some stability. Not that it's the most stable thing in the world, being a freelancer, but some stability, better income than I had when I was a struggling actor like everyone. And also the fact that I am actually a true introvert. I don't enjoy being the center of attention. I think for a moment, I just forgot about that when I was doing the whole acting thing, because it was my way of escapism. And it's a form of escapism when you pretend to be someone else so that you don't have to deal with your own life. It's a powerful drug, escapism. And they even warned us about that, and I still fell for it. They warned us about that on day 1 at drama school, when they said, you have to be sure that you're making the right choices. You're doing this for the right reason, because a lot of people get into acting because they are narcissistic, so they just need all this attention, right? That's not me. I have my flaws, that's not me. Other people use acting as a form of psychotherapy to deal with their lives, because there are people who do drugs, there are people who become gamblers, they become compulsive shoppers, but there are also people who escape from their life by pretending to be someone else. And I was like, that sounds so dumb. And then I did it myself. You don't often realize what you're doing, right? Until after you come out of that phase. And I was like, they even warned us on day one. How stupid am I that I did it anyway? Our head, of course, she warned us and I did it. And I realized as I was getting better established in the whole language tuition thing that I think I've been doing that escapism thing as well. I think I've been using acting because I'm just too much of a goody two-shoes to use drugs or something. But I was essentially acting the pain away and distracting myself. So I thought, it looks like right now I have a chance to build a better life and to build a life that I enjoy. Isn't that more productive than spending all my time and energy trying to run from a life that I don't enjoy? So I did that for a few years. And in the beginning was good, but then as the novelty started wearing off of, okay, I'm not broke 24/7 and I'm not constantly uncomfortable because I'm on stage or in front of a camera and people are looking and I hate it, but I have to do it because that's how I get paid. Once that novelty that, oh, I don't have to do all this crap anymore to survive, it started wearing off. Again, I started asking myself, is that all there is? So I think there's different stages, right? You can have the fear that, oh no, but then the next stage, it can be just a general kind of dissatisfaction and a general kind of lack of interest. I would just think, is that all there is? It's good. It's not that I hate teaching languages. It's okay. And professionally, it's the best job that I've had so far because I neither hate it nor am paid peanuts for it. So I should be happier, but I'm not. I'm okay, but I don't know if there's something more out there. So that's about 2 years ago. So this is when I really started thinking, okay, so the last time when I felt really alive and happy and passionate was at drama school and doing acting. Sure, I had a lot of moments that I hated, but I had a lot of moments that I liked. It was the best and the worst of times at the same time. What if I can transfer some of that magic and reintegrate it into something new and build something new? Because now I've been through like the, it's only about the money, then it's only about the enjoyment and the art. What if now I can fuse that and make something that is both enjoyable and I feel like I have a purpose and some kind of meaning in my life, and I also don't still struggle to survive. So that's basically how I arrived at this, by trying to integrate the best of all of these worlds and build something new.
This is what I like about your journey. I mean, even though you felt cornered, you felt okay, you had that fear, your back was against the wall. Okay, what am I doing now? I don't like this. I don't enjoy this. I don't enjoy that. I don't want to work 3 jobs just to be able to sustain myself.
Yeah.
I don't want to reach, I don't know, 40 and still be jobless and I don't know
Yeah.
what to do with my life. And probably it was also the fear of missing out on certain things, on certain experiences,
Yeah.
probably.
It's like life is passing me by.
Yeah,
I'm
what
busy
am I
trying to
doing?
sink, trying not to sink. That's all I'm doing. I'm not living, I'm just existing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
surviving.
Yeah.
You went into survival mode at
Mm.
certain points. But I don't know if you know this about the topic of fear.
Mm.
Babies are only born with the fear of loud noises and of falling or being dropped.
Right.
These are so-called innate fears. All the other
Mm.
fears, we learn them. They are learned,
Mm.
actually. So those two are basically the only fears that we actually are born with. And
Mm.
fear was allowed humans to survive, predators and natural disasters.
Yeah.
It was like an adaptive behavior, for that helped people identify threats. So this is
Yeah.
a very interesting concept. Of course, we have the so-called natural fears, like fear of the dark, fear of
Mm.
different types of animals, like, I don't know, insects,
Tarantulas. Yeah.
yes, spiders or
Yeah.
something. That these are the types of fears that are influenced by our environment. And
Mm.
as we get older, the fears develop based on contexts, because of association with some some things, some triggers that
Mm.
we might experience at some point. So this is, and you also experienced this, the way that the brain processes fear is through
Mm.
the fight, flight, and freeze response. And
Yeah.
you basically proved the fighting. I'm trying to do something with my
Yeah.
life. I'm trying to figure out different avenues. Also, the flight, when you
Mm.
wanted to, I don't know, go back
Escape.
from, yes,
Yeah.
the escapism that you were
Mm.
talking about, and probably the freeze response when you actually didn't know what to probably do at certain points.
Mm. But it's so funny because while you're under the influence of fear, you might not know that you're under the
Of
influence of
course,
fear.
of course.
Other people can tell, but you might not be able to tell. You either can't tell what's happening at all, or you misinterpret it as something different, right? Like, it's not fear, I'm just stubborn. I'm like, no, it's fight mode.
Yeah, that's true. But you also, you cannot judge yourself looking back on a
Mm.
certain experience in your life. You cannot judge yourself with the, I don't know, the knowledge that you have at this moment
Yeah,
after going through the whole experience, because, well,
yeah, that's
we're,
unfair.
yeah, it's true. I'm wondering if you could wave a magic wand and
Mm.
change one of your biggest fears. What would
Mm.
that one be?
Ooh, I think that I would take away my fear of heights because I have a debilitating fear of heights. And I think there are a lot of exciting and interesting things out there that the fear of heights gets in the way of. Because I have it pretty severely. Like even getting out on a balcony on the first floor, I started getting a bit dizzy. So I think I would like to experience like a roller coaster or something like that,
Ooh.
or bungee jumping.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to do that because I would probably actually die during, like, of a heart attack during that. But if I could take away that fear, I think, yeah, that could be interesting to see what other things I can do.
Well, it's interesting. So this would be, let's say, a fear that is caused by the environment, an
Mm.
environmental fear. Let's say it like this. And studies say that you can actually overcome some of your fears by continuous exposure to them.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it works for every
I don't know.
individual with every
Well, I
type.
have done, I have done, I have done a very, very small, like the smallest possible roller coaster a couple of times. It was awful. I don't want to do it again. It was horrible. It took me more than half an hour for my heart rate to go back to normal. And it was the smallest, tamest. It was called something mouse, crazy mouse. I can't remember, something like that. But it's like a patent, the pattern. So it's the smallest roller coaster. There's no loops. There's nothing like that. It's the smallest, lowest one. I almost lost my mind. So I thought, well, I understand exposure therapy because I went through that with being afraid to actually talk to people and being in front of an audience. That was scary, but not to the point where I felt like it was crippling me, because they say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I don't know if it's always the case. I don't think getting hit by a car would make me stronger, even if I survive it. I think it would probably make me weaker because some things might not repair properly. And with the exposure to an audience, I did feel like for this fear specifically, it's true. I do think it's making me stronger because I'm learning. The fear of heights, I didn't feel like I was getting stronger. It was just as scary and as uncomfortable every time. So I thought, maybe I needed to start even smaller. Maybe I need to just start spending half an hour on the balcony or something before I try a roller coaster. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting because this actually ties in with the fear of death.
Mm,
It's like the body feels like, okay, if I'm doing this, I'm going to die. So
yeah.
basically this is what's going on, and the brain picks up on the signals
Mm,
from the body. So this is what happens. It's actually the fear of death that comes into play.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's a bit probably trickier to
Probably.
overcome some.
Well, even though apparently, so again, I don't necessarily know how accurate these statistics are, but apparently fear of public speaking is more common than fear of death in a lot of countries, which to me is
Wow.
just so weird.
Yeah.
I think, really? But death, you die. Why is speaking to an audience scarier than that? Like, I get it. I don't necessarily enjoy being the center of attention, but I'm afraid of death a lot more than I am. Well, actually, I'm not afraid at this point of an audience anymore. But even back then, I still feared death more. I think, wow, why does it scare people so much? Because there's almost 0% chance you will die while doing a TED Talk, right? Unless you have
Yes,
a crazy fan who stalks you or something. Yeah,
yeah, well, it's not actual, death, but as I
yeah.
said, it's the same thing. I mean, this also ties in with the fear of death, but again, not, the actual death, but the
Yeah.
body perceives it as
Mm,
such. This is why they say that stress is so dangerous
mm,
for the human body and for your mind, because you are in a constant state of, okay, fight and flight, and this is, the way the brain actually responds to the
mm.
fears that you are feeling. And it's like you're running away from a saber tooth,
Yeah,
or from a dinosaur or
yeah.
something. It's the same the same feeling that you get. So yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of the emergency solution, isn't it? So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
will pump more adrenaline, your blood pressure will rise,
Hmm.
your so that your reflexes rise, your speed rises, but it's not meant to be a trick that you
Yeah,
do all the time. It's meant to be
exactly.
only for emergency situations. Yeah. Mhm.
So I'm curious about something.
Sure.
There are, let's say, three types of people: the
Hmm.
watcher, the wisher, and the doer. Which
Yeah.
one would you say you are?
Oh, I would say I'm a natural watcher. I have to push myself to be a doer sometimes, but I'm definitely an observer and an analyst. I like sort of people watching and seeing what they do and why they do it, and cooking up different potential plans and trying to simulate, I guess, what the potential results would be in my brain, like making lists and plans. I would say I'm a watcher. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Who made that distinction? Like, what is this distinction based on? Because there's so many different psychographic segmentation kind of tools, like from Myers-Briggs to Enneagram to what is there a name for that one? Because
No, I
as a
don't think.
watcher, I want to look more into it.
Yeah, as an
Yeah,
observer. No, actually,
yeah,
I came up with this one.
right.
It's yeah,
Yeah,
so.
I agree. Actually, I think we can probably roughly split people into those three categories. Yeah, it's like fight, flight, and freeze. Observer, doer, and wisher. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Mm,
the observer, okay, observes. The wisher usually doesn't. It's not an observer like
mm,
situation for the wisher. The wisher just wishes and but doesn't
yeah.
follow up with actual action. No.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we have probably all of us have some percentage of all three, but there's a dominant one.
Mm-hmm,
I would say
mm-hmm.
that because I can be a doer, it's just not natural. I have to push myself to be a doer. But my natural state, I can definitely watch all day if I just allow myself. Yeah.
Well, actually, I'm a doer and a watcher. So this is
Nice.
my combination, because
Nice.
I also love to watch people. This is why I'm
Mm.
fascinated by psychology and by the human aspects of
It
everything.
is fascinating, isn't it? Just
Yeah.
watching and thinking, oh, why did they do that? Why did they do that? You have to do some of that at drama school as well, because you have to almost psychoanalyze the character. Because for you to embody a person, you need to understand to an extent how they tick.
Mm-hmm.
So otherwise, the performance is going to be flat. Because, for example, almost nobody, let's say you're playing a villain, in real life, if you want to make that person realistic, almost no one's objective is to be evil. That's not an objective. Even people who do horrible things, their objective is usually something else. They think they're doing the right thing. They are crazy, but they
Mm-hmm.
think they're doing the right thing. So their objective is make the world a better place. The greater good, I don't know, salvation, something like that, right? So you have to analyze, okay, so what does that person really want? They don't want to kill millions of innocents. They don't want to be evil. They want something else. And it's just the execution that goes wrong or how they do it. So you have to be a bit of a watcher, I think, or you have to force yourself into that part of your brain when you're trying to understand how someone ticks.
Yeah. Okay, I want to bring this, let's say, to a close.
Mm,
I recently saw a video that you posted
mm.
on LinkedIn when where you play a bit with accents,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah, and you said something very interesting, that you found the golden middle, let's say, between
Mm,
how you would normally speak,
mm.
your the accent that you would normally have, normally use, and an over the top pretentious English,
Yeah,
British British
yeah, the
accent.
Queen's English. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, taking this into account, how does the famous phrase "just be yourself," just
Mm.
be how does this apply to public speaking? Is it a really good advice that applies in
I
this
think
instance or not?
no. By and large, I think just be yourself. I think in most instances, it's probably not good advice. I posted actually a video ranting about this, but that was before we met. I think that was a few months ago. Here's what I don't like about it. It is not actionable. That's one of the biggest issues with it. How do you be yourself? What does that mean? It's not concrete advice because you are always being yourself. Like when people say just be yourself, I want to say, who did you think I was being all this time? Batman. I was always being myself. You're not helping. One, two, we don't have one self. It's not one block. We have different selves almost, but not all of these are appropriate at all times. So, if you get broken up with and you're crying your eyes out and you're getting drunk in tequila, that is still you. That's not inauthentic. That is still a self. You have a different self when you're talking, I guess, to a dog, for example, and you get, maybe that's just me, but I get super excited. I'm like, and I put on like a baby voice, and that's still me. I'm still being myself. It's a different aspect, but I can't show up, or it would not be productive if I show up in a business meeting as the self that talks to dogs like they're babies, or as the self who's like sloshing over drunk. Like, what am I going to show up to the meeting and like bend over the meeting chair and throw up? No, that doesn't work. So it's about what aspect of yourself works in which context. One. Two, part two of that rant is, it assumes, so just being yourself works if yourself, let's say the self that you're usually in, the mode that you're usually in, happens coincidentally to be what the audience wants. Most of the time, that's not the case, because most of us are not naturally charming, magnetic, persuasive. Most people aren't natural, and I include myself. As I said, I had to learn that from scratch. Most people are not completely left alone. They're not what the audience wants. It's like going on a date and people say, just be yourself. Well, what does that mean? I mean, obviously, don't pretend to be a billionaire who is going to invent, I don't know, a space travel engine if that's not you. But just be yourself doesn't help because you don't know what the other person needs. So just being yourself is like, what is that supposed to do? It's going to work if you have that perfect match where just yourself is exactly what the other person needs. If it's not, so I tell people it's not about just being yourself. It's about being yourself on a good day and being these parts of yourself that the audience needs. So being the helpful part of yourself, being the giving part of yourself, being the considerate part of yourself, being the teacher part of yourself, because again, they're watching because they're hoping to learn something useful, hopefully. Does that answer the question? Was it too long of a rant? I don't know. I
No.
don't like it. I don't like it at all. Just be yourself as a blanket statement. I think you can tell that after the other person has been through quite a bit of training and practice so that they know what the audience needs and how to connect. Then you can tell them, don't overthink it, just be yourself. But otherwise, it's a bad idea. To me, this is kind of like handing you the keys to a vehicle that you've never driven. I mean, a completely different type, not your car. I'm talking about you've only driven a car and I give you the keys to an airplane and I say, bon voyage, just be yourself, it will be fine.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like to me. I'm like, that's not how it works. You need to have a certain skill set to fly a plane. You can't just be yourself. You will crash it.
But there's another famous phrase, fake it till you make it. I actually saw an interesting TED talk. I can't remember. It was a lady that's rephrased this and said, okay, fake it till you become it. So, the whole process of actually learning stuff.
Yeah.
So you don't need to pretend, let's go with your example with the airplane, pretend from the get-go, yes, I can fly an airplane. It's okay.
Yeah.
You're safe with me. You're in good hands.
Yeah, exactly.
And everybody crashes. So you don't need to do that. But you can say, okay, yes, I am skilled in that respect, in that regard, but okay, to take the time to actually learn everything that needs to be learned. So yeah, it's
I really agree with that, actually, because this is something that I occasionally say that people get angry because like, no, you can't fake it till you make it. And I think, well, first of all, a lot of psychologists would disagree. Like sometimes you have to pretend to be happy before you can actually be happy. Like you have to practice laughing. You have to practice relaxing before it actually comes. And it really depends on what you're faking. So where I would draw a hard no is faking skills or experience that you don't have. Definitely. So totally, I can fly the plane and kill everyone. But certain things, I don't think they're necessarily bad to fake until they become real, like being calm. So if you go for a job interview and you really need this job, because otherwise, let's say you will end up homeless, I don't think there's anything noble about letting them know just how scared you are, the interviewer, or letting them know just how much you need the job. I don't think there's anything wrong with faking being calm in that moment. Do you see what I mean? There are different levels. I think there is a level of faking that will hurt other people, and that's no. But then there's a level where you could say, or at least I say, it's none of your business how I feel. It's none of your business if I'm nervous. What you need to know is, let's say in the job interview situation, do I have the skills and do I have the traits that you need? If I do, it's none of your business, I think, if I'm nervous right now in the interview. Obviously, if I'm nervous because I'm lying, that's a different thing. But if I'm honest and I'm just nervous because it's an interview and people get nervous in interviews, or because I really need this job, I think that's fine. I think definitely certain things you can practice. If you don't want to call it faking it, well, you can practice them until you become those things.
Yes, exactly. You can learn, just like like you said in the beginning with the public speaking skills and techniques that you can actually learn. You don't need to be okay. There are people who are, let's say, natural born speakers. They have
very small percentage.
Yeah, but there is,
Yeah.
And of course, in various other fields of. In other areas, there are naturally born people that are inclined to do something. But yes, you can, all the other things you can learn. Of course, I'm not saying go out and
fly a plane.
Yeah, fly a plane. But that could be also a learned skill.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I love that you brought up this video because it was, I think, only yesterday or 2 days ago when I posted that video.
Yeah, it was recent. Yeah.
Yeah. So there is a difference between learning a new skill and making it your own and faking it. I mean, neither of us is a native speaker of English, right? Are we faking it for the audience now that we are conversing in a foreign language? No, we've just learned a new skill and we're using it to improve our lives and hopefully the lives of some other people as well. We're not being fake, as far as I'm concerned, by talking in a language that's not our native. It's not faking it if you own it and you make it part of yourself.
Exactly. And
because you are not static. You can change. So it is part of you after the change.
Yeah, exactly. And you need to give it your best shot. This is
you're not a tree, as you said.
Yeah, exactly. You're not a tree. You can always move to something else. Thank you very much, Nick, for this lovely conversation.
Thank you for having me.
I will leave my audience with one final note. Get to where you want to be, one story at a time. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the emails so you can be notified when the next videos are uploaded. You can find all the necessary details in the description below.